Good day, everyone. As we continue our devotional series on the spiritual discipline of fasting, allow me to share a couple of thoughts from the book of Matthew. And I'll let you know from now, you may find that this particular devotional may be even more useful at the end of the fasting period. And when I share my thoughts, you probably understand why. Matthew chapter 4, in verse 1, I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version. It says, "Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, 'If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread.' But he answered, 'It is written.'" Jesus goes on to respond using scripture. One of the things I want to point out here is that the tempter came after Jesus when his period of fasting was over. At the time where Jesus may very well, of course, he was vulnerable in terms of physical hunger, but spiritually may have been very, very enriched and charged, having spent all of that time likely in communion with God, especially if the wilderness, is, as we anticipate, just opportunity to be in nature. But look at the timing. When the fasting was over, the tempter came after him. We may drop our guards spiritually on January 31st, where we feel like, it's done. I could relax a little bit now. That may very well be the time where we are most vulnerable to Satan's temptations. Let's remain spiritually alert, even after our time of fasting is done. Secondly and finally, I want to share another passage from Matthew. We're in the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus here is teaching about the value of exercising certain spiritual practices, giving to the poor, prayer, etc. And he includes fasting in this. And he talks about doing it privately, doing it in secret. In Matthew chapter 6, in verse 17, it says, "But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that your fasting may be seen not by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you." See, when our fasting is done as a community, keep fasting. But guess what? This is your secret between you and God. Now, it may be if you're married, living in a Christian household, you may not be able to keep others away from it, but as best as possible, let this be your own secret with God. And what the Bible talks about is God rewarding, which is part of God's nature. That's his heart. He delights in blessing. He delights in rewarding. And he's the one who's going to see your continued devotion to fasting. I want to encourage us to really think about continuing the practice even after the church is done. All right? It doesn't have to be February 1st. It could be February 1st. Could be any time during the year. That's really between you and God. But it's an opportunity to be motivated by that audience of one. God sees, he rewards, and he blesses. So when we finish on January 31st, you come up with a plan of when you're going to continue your practice of fasting. This is between you and God, who delights in rewarding. God bless you all. Have a wonderful rest of 2021.